Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. This is going to be part 1 of 10 lessons which will be looking at the fundamentals of the Arabic language. These are going to be lessons that are extremely simplified and explained using examples so that each concept is easy to understand. Having an understanding of these 10 lessons will build an excellent foundation for the Arabic language and will allow you to correctly convey meaning in Arabic, form coherent sentences, and aid in protecting yourself from making errors. This is lesson number 1, in which we will discuss the first subject called mubtada and khabar, which is translated as subject and predicate. Let's get right into it. So let's consider the following example. Khalid is a teacher. So in this example, Khalid is what we call the mubtada, the subject, who you are talking about. And the khabar, which we call the predicate, we'll say information. It's easier to understand. So the khabar, the information, is that Khalid is a teacher is all of the information. So in this example of Khalid is a teacher, Khalid is mubtada, because that's the subject, that's who you're talking about. And the teacher, what the person is, the information, that is known as khabar. Let's take a few more examples just to understand this concept. So let's just say we're talking about Mahmoud this time. So Mahmoud is the subject, who you're talking about, and any information you give about Mahmoud becomes the khabar. So we can say Mahmoud is knowledgeable. So Mahmoud is mubtada, is knowledgeable, is khabar. If we said Mahmoud is a conqueror, Mahmoud would be the subject and the information we're giving will be the khabar. That in a nutshell is lesson number 1. What is a mubtada in the Arabic language and what is a khabar is as simple as that. Here I'll share a few other concepts in the Arabic language which will then make it easier to understand certain rules that they have within the Arabic language and understand better the concept of mubtada and khabar. In English, we have something called a common noun. So a common noun is basically the name of any person, any place, a thing, or an idea. It's just basically something that's common. It's not something specific. So for example, if I was to say a girl, a boy, a school, something like that, you wouldn't know which boy I'm speaking about, which girl I'm speaking about, which school I'm speaking about. So in English, we would call this a common noun. However, the opposite of this would be a proper noun. Now, with a proper noun, it's something specific and particular. So it's a particular person, a place, a thing, something that's really specific. So for example, if I was to say Khalid, Ahmed, the name of a school, the name of a car, if I was to say something specific, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. So in English, we call this a proper noun. So when we're talking about something common, it could be anything. And when we're talking about something specific, we call that a proper noun. In Arabic, exactly the same way. If you're talking about something that's a common noun, it could be anything. In Arabic, they call this nakira. And if you are speaking about something specific, in Arabic, they call this ma'rifa. So for example, if I was to say a boy, any old boy, that's nakira. If I was talking about someone specific, like Khalid, this is a proper noun. This in Arabic will be known as ma'rifa. So now you understand 2 new concepts. When you are talking about something common, it is known as nakira. When you are talking about something specific, it is known as ma'rifa. Now in Arabic, what they do is, when they have a word that is nakira, then that word itself, it has a tanween on it. That means either it has 2 dhamma on it, 2 kasra on it, or 2 fatha on it. Let's take the example of a man is knowledgeable. So first of all, a man in Arabic is called a rajul, and knowledgeable is alim. Now, because it is any man, we don't know who this man is, it's not specific, it's just a common noun. We would say rajulun with 2 dhamma on it, rajulun alimun. Rajulun عالم. Now in this sentence, the word رجل, because it is a common noun, it could be any old man. This, what we call a common noun in Arabic, would be known as nakira. However, if the same sentence was about somebody specific, so instead of talking about a man, we said Mahmud. Because Mahmud is a proper noun, it's about somebody specific, it would be Mahmudun alimun. Mahmud is knowledgeable, Mahmudun alimun. Now in English, if you wanted to turn a common noun into a proper noun, it's very simple. All you do is you change the article. So for example, if we had a man is a teacher, we don't know who this man is, but you wanted to make it specific, you could just say the man. And by adding the article the in front of the word, this now becomes specific and you know who it's talking about, that it's talking about somebody specific. So it's taking a nakira and turning it into ma'rifah. So in English, you just take the a, for example, an apple, you change it into the apple. A pen changes into the pen. In Arabic is exactly the same. It has a very similar concept. In Arabic, what you do is, if you have a common noun like rajulun, a man, and you wanted to turn it into a proper noun, all you do is you put alif lam at the beginning of the word. So rajulun becomes ar-rajulu. Now what happens is that translates as a man becomes the man. When you do this in Arabic, the difference is that at the end, the word rajulun, the tanween it had on the end of two dhamma. For example, rajulun, the two dhamma turns into one, because whenever any word has an alif lam at the beginning, whether it has two dhamma, two kasra or two fatha, they always become one. And that's it. That's how you turn a common noun into a proper noun. So if you were saying rajulun alimun, a man is knowledgeable, and you wanted to turn it into somebody specific, you say ar-rajulu alimun. Job done. Now let's go back to what we were talking about today, which is mubtada and khabar. Let's take the example of Mahmud is knowledgeable. So because Mahmud is the subject who we are talking about, Mahmud is our mubtada, and being knowledgeable is the information, that is our khabar. Now the rule regarding mubtada and khabar is that the mubtada is usually ma'rifah, it's a proper noun, and the khabar is usually nakira. That's how it works. So based on what we've learnt now, if you had Mahmud, because Mahmud is already a proper noun, perfect. That can be your mubtada, Mahmudun alimun, and alim, any information about Mahmud, is your khabar. If, however, your mubtada was not a proper noun, it wasn't ma'rifah, then based on the concept that we've just learnt, you would turn it into a ma'rifah simply by adding alif lam. So if your sentence started off with a man, rajulun, alimun, then to turn it into ma'rifah, you would put an alif lam before it, ar-raju, and at the end the lun, two dhamma becomes one, ar-rajulu alimun. This way you are sticking to the rules of mubtada khabar, where the first word is always a proper noun, or what we call a ma'rifah, and the second word is nakira, which is your khabar, your information. One final thing to keep in mind is that if the mubtada is feminine, then the khabar, the information, will also have to be feminine as well. So to change a word into feminine, to change it into the feminine form, in Arabic, at the end of the word, most of the time you add what we call a round ta, or ta marbuta. Let's take a look at an example so this makes more sense. Let's change Mahmud, who is knowledgeable, alim. Let's change Mahmud into a girl. So let's just change Mahmud into Khadija. So if Mahmud becomes Khadija, it would now be Khadijatun alimun. Before Mahmud was Mahmudun alimun, Mahmud is knowledgeable. We've now changed it into Khadijatun alimun. Now the problem is that the mubtada and the khabar do not match, because the first word is feminine but alimun is masculine. So what do? We get the word alimun and we add a round ta or ta marbuta at the end of it, and alimun becomes alimatun. So now it becomes خديجة عالمة. Let's take another example. If we were talking about Mahmoud being pious, the word for Mahmoud is Mahmoud and pious is Salih. So it would be Mahmoudun, that's the subject, Salihun is pious, that's the information, the khabar. But what if it wasn't about Mahmoud, it was about Khadija? In that situation, it would be Khadijatun Salihatun. And that tun sound at the end of it, that tells you that it is now conformative of the previous word and they both are now feminine. Now let's summarize everything we've learned today. So we've learned about mubtada and khabar. Mubtada is your subject, who or what you're talking about, and the khabar is the information about your subject. Mubtada comes first, khabar comes second. Mubtada is usually ma'rifah. It is something or someone specific, and the khabar is usually nakira. It's common. If for some reason your mubtada is nakira, it is common, it is easy to change it into a ma'rifah simply by adding alif lam. It should be remembered that if a word does have alif lam, then it will not have a tanween at the end of it. And also the mubtada and the khabar, they should match in gender. So if the mubtada is masculine, the khabar will be masculine as well. If the mubtada is feminine, the khabar will also be feminine. Now it is extremely important that you practice the rules that you've learnt on examples to strengthen your understanding. To see how much you've understood from this lesson, I will attach a few exercises below where you have to translate English sentences into Arabic correctly using the rule that you've learned today. In order to help you with the exercises, so whether you're translating from English into Arabic or from Arabic into English, if you are not sure of any of the words or you don't know their translation, I will attach a word bank below where it will have English words and the translation for them in Arabic in singular and plural form. So you can use the word bank to help you with the translation of the words. But I would recommend that you go through every single example until you're confident and you feel like you can translate correctly using the rules and you understand where the mubtada is and where the khabar is and where the rules are applied. And I would recommend that you memorize the words from the word bank so that as each lesson progresses, you are learning more and more words in Arabic with English translation as well.